By 21st century standards, Lee's racial positions are, to say the least, regressive. Yet by those of his own era, they were, if not progressive, then at the very least typical. The enlightened authors who permeated his childhood education were less than enlightened on matters of race. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, opposed slavery, but declared the Negroes to be naturally inferior to the whites. There scarcely ever was a civilized nation of that complexion, nor even any individual eminent either in action or speculation. Lee said virtually as much to his cousin, Thomas Carter. But whites were to his eyes superior not only to blacks. Serving in the army widened his experience of other races, notably Indian and Latino, far more than that of most Americans. That experience confirmed to him the opinion of the vast majority of whites of his day, who considered themselves at the top of the evolutionary pyramid. Yet some, even among Caucasians, were closer to the top than others. In 1866, Lee suggested to an English correspondent that his visit to America must have impressed upon him the fact that though climate, government, and circumstances have produced changes in the character of the people, yet in all essential qualities they resemble the races from which they are sprung, and that to no race are we more indebted for the virtues and qualifications which constitute a great people than to the Anglo-Saxon. Whatever Lee's private opinions, however, he carefully upheld the laws and practices of his day for the benefit of all persons, regardless of race. He insisted on justice for everyone, black or white, as he did in confronting potential lynch mobs at the Lexington courthouse, or earlier in planning for the emancipation of the Custis slaves at a time certain. Moreover, his private views did not preclude his care and concern for individuals, regardless of race or station. As a young lieutenant, he took his late mother's slave, Nat, to Georgia to care for the old man's health. During the war, Lee looked after the well-being of Perry and Meredith, two slaves who were with him. Of course, in so doing he may also have suffered the naivete, or even outright self-deception, of many slaveholders that the institution was not as bad as it was. Two other elements inherent in Lee's background moderated his ethnic views: his patrician class and the paternalistic perspective that accompanied it. Lee spent his lifetime in the rarefied air of Virginia's elite. He spent much of his life in one of the nation's most prominent mansions, placed upon such a height that its residents would look down on the rest of the world. Throughout his life, Lee held himself aloof from others. It should surprise no one that he avoided the Christmas eggnog festivities at West Point. But though later characterized as the Marble Man, no one ever called him a snob. Moreover, with noble ease came the obligation of duty, to serve, to oversee, to seek the long view over society's well-being, following the example of such luminaries as Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, and the other founders, who assumed a long-time perch above the madding crowd. It should also surprise no one that the Constitution they wrote provided for the people to elect directly only the House of Representatives. All others were indirectly chosen in order to promote what Jefferson called an aristocracy of talent, theoretically open to anyone, but still an aristocracy. Nevertheless, Lee spent most of his career as a soldier of middling rank, accepting without complaint whatever quarters were assigned him. He moved easily from the superintendent's house at West Point to a tent in the dusty Texas frontier, where he showed as much concern for soldiers grieving the death of their sons as he did for his social peers. Arlington House stood, too, as a shrine to paternalism. This classical ideal held three characteristics. First, a relationship. The term derives from the Latin pater, father. Second, a superiority. As the father heads the family, so the father figure oversees those dependent upon him. Third, an element of caring. It is the paternal responsibility to provide for dependents, helping them to grow and prosper